I am excited as today we will be providing our latest rendition of our Financial Friday series, featuring members of our esteemed sister agencies, NJEDA. They are here to discuss their new Small Business Emergency Grant. This is phase 4 of a program that they have gallantly been providing to the state of New Jersey since last March at the outbreak of the pandemic. We're excited to have our guest here today, and just really want to thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to be here as we give you pivotal information in preparation of your application for NJEDA's latest Small Business Emergency Grant. And with that, I'd like to bring Vanessa Quijano, Invest Newark Senior Vice President of Business Development, to introduce our guests. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. Good afternoon, everyone. Vanessa Quijano here. Happy to be here to share great information on the next phase of the NJEDA Small Business Emergency Grant Fund. And just a reminder, here at Invest Newark, what we provide to the community here in Newark in business development, we help businesses with technical assistance, training from marketing and women entrepreneurship, licensing and certification, getting your MWBEs, also getting your certification from the Urban Enterprise Zone. And also what we provide is a free business directory. So if your business isn't listed on a directory, please go to our website, investnewark.org, to add your business to the Newark Business Directory. And we also run a procurement portal. In the procurement portal, we publish all the opportunities available to small businesses all in one place. So definitely go on to investnewark.org to check those out. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker from NJEDA today, Maggie Peters. Maggie Peters is a Senior Small Business Development Officer in the Small Business Services Unit at the NJEDA. Her role is to market NJEDA resources to small and mid-sized companies, private entities, financial institutions, and she also tracks and monitors the progress of these applications. Previously, Maggie was formerly the Senior Vice President of Economic Development at the Business Council of Westchester, where she was responsible for the creation and management of their economic development initiative. She was also the director of the Bergen County Economic Development Corporation and the executive director of the Morris County Economic Development Corporation. So with all that experience and knowledge, we're very happy today to have Maggie Peters as part of the NJEDA to discuss this economic relief package. Welcome, Maggie.
Thanks so much, Vanessa. Okay.
I'm giving you the mouse.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see. There we go. Okay, so in terms of NJEDA's overall COVID relief efforts, here are some statistics on it. We have approved $55,000 plus of awards, so that's processing and approving that much money in awards. We've provided $257 million of support, and that's in just about 1 year's time, a little bit less. Let's see. Vanessa, it is not moving. There we go. So here is the full COVID-19 economic development relief package from the NJEDA. So some of these things are the Small Business Emergency Assistance Grant Program, which we're going to talk about phase 4 today. Phases 1 through 3 are over. We have our Small Business Emergency Assistance Loan Program. We have Sustain and Serve New Jersey, which is one of our new programs. So we partner with restaurants and we make sure that our community partners have food. So we distribute the meals for free in the communities we serve. And small and micro business PPE access program. We know that PPP has been an issue trying to get, And then we know that it's been expensive for businesses going forward. So we have our PPE access program. We also have a lot of programs for community development financial institutions, CDFIs. So through these programs, we get small and micro businesses financing. So we fund the CDFIs to make sure that those businesses have access to capital. Entrepreneur support program. So that's $2 million supporting investment, totaling $2.5 million. So small business emergency assistance grant program. So we are in a pre-registration period of this program. It's broken into 4 buckets, and we're doing this to make sure that companies have enough time to gather their paperwork and submit, as complete an application as possible. We're also trying to make sure that everyone, that this was an equitable program and that we're getting to the businesses that need this money the most. So you can have up to 50 full-time equivalent employees. The award sizes go up to $20,000 per entity, and it's targeted funding. So the way this works is restaurants first, up to 50. We've allocated $35 million for that. Childcare is next at $10 million. Micro businesses at 25. And then all other businesses, 6 to 50 full-time equivalent employees, is $15 million. The total program size is $85 million. So this is a sizable program. We're really trying to make sure that everyone gets something. Would you advance, Vanessa? So the phase 4 program timeline. So we have staggered this to make sure that everyone's having the best experience and submitting the most complete applications and having the time to do that. So this is the pre-registration period is between now and the 29th. So here's the website where you have to pre-register, business.nj.gov/COVID. So that's where you'll fill out your pre-registration. If you did not apply in phase 3, or if you did apply and were not approved, you're able to apply first on May 3rd. So that's 9 o'clock on May 3rd if you have not received a phase 3 grant for the emergency assistance grant from the NJEDA. And then 5/5 at 9 o'clock, that's restaurants and childcare. It opens up for 5/10, all micro businesses. And then the application opens to any business, 6 to 50 employees on the 12th. So this is a rolling basis, hopefully giving people plenty of time to gather up their paperwork and prepare to submit their applications. So here is a similar slide to the last slide, but it's just kind of in a flow chart if that's easier to follow, with the same parameters and application dates. So here is the phase 4 for restaurants slide. You must be, the most important thing on this slide basically is you must be in the NAICS code 722 to qualify. So that's food services and drinking places. And then here are the awards and the employment amounts on the right. So there are some things that I'll point out now, but are applicable for every point, no matter what type of business you are, no matter when you apply. You must have a physical location in New Jersey. You must be registered to do business in New Jersey, and you must be able to produce a business registration certificate. So you can check on that at any time on the state's website. Just plug in your EIN, and then the first 4 letters of the name of your business, and you should be able to look up if you have a business registration certificate and that you're in good standing. And also the Department of Labor, you must be in good standing with. There's always going to be a debarment legal questionnaire as part of the application. And you're going to have to find a way to show that you've been negatively impacted by the pandemic. So we're going to look for tax returns. We're trying to compare, 2019 to 2020 revenue to revenue now. So there'll be revenue-based questions. We're looking at gross income for the most part. Next slide, Vanessa. Okay, so this is for childcare providers. So this is NAICS code 624410. So that's how you would qualify. Just make sure that your NAICS code falls into that category. And then here are the parameters for full-time employees. 5 or fewer is 10, 6 to 25, 15, 26 to 50 is $20,000. So Wednesday, May 5th for childcare providers, the same parameters apply about the location, the business registration, Department of Labor. Next slide. Okay, so this is the last bucket with the micro businesses. So you're eligible for, a maximum grant of $10,000. Your application date is Monday, May 10th, and everything is processed on a first come, first served basis. See, that's 25 million set aside for micro businesses. And of course, we try to be as equitable as possible and make sure that anyone in Opportunity Zone Census Tract has a set aside. Next slide. All other small businesses. So if you're not falling into the previous categories, here's your category: 6 to 25 full-time equivalent employees, 10,000. 26 to 50 is 15. So you must pre-register, just like all the other categories. Wednesday, May 12th at 9. Okay, so now we're going to go through all of the required information as well as some of the application pages and what they look like. We want everyone to be as prepared as possible to upload all of the information that's required. You could take a picture and upload it. It doesn't have to all be scanned. So you can view the sample application at the same website, business.nj.gov/COVID. That's something that should be bookmarked on everyone's computer. That's where you'll find the most up-to-date information on different programs and everything related to those programs. You need to have your contact information and your primary business address readily available. I know that that sounds simple, but sometimes people registered their business at a different address than they are currently at, or they used to have a storefront, now they don't. So it's important to just know on your formation documents what address would be registered for your business registration certificate. Also, it's important to know what funding you've received in the past, not only from the NJEDA, but from the federal government. So if you got a PPP, an EIDL, an economic injury disaster grant, or anything from your county or local government, as well as just your insurance, you're going to need to provide documentation for that. So if you're saying that you got a PPP for a certain amount, make sure that you have something from the SBA documenting that. And as for the EDA, you should have, an approval letter or something if you've received any funding in previous rounds. If you haven't received funding, there's nothing to report. We're only looking for the funding if you got declined. We don't need to know, we don't need any documentation. So we're basically just looking to verify the amount. So anything with the amount on it. Your business's full legal name. So tons of businesses, of course, are using a doing business as or a DBA. Make sure that you're using your full legal name so that when we put it through our checks at the Department of Labor and taxation and things, we're looking for the right business name. And of course, the right EIN. We're trying to match those things up. So whatever it is, just try to be as precise as possible. And of course, your entity type. So this matters because we're going to be looking for different things for different types of company formations. And then of course, the year established should match your formation documents. So when you put the year established into your application, make sure that it's matching your establishment documents and your tax ID number, of course. And then in terms of employment, the way that we're verifying employment is through a WR-30 filing. So we're going to want the highest full-time equivalent count for the past 8 quarters. So you'll have to look at your WR-30s. So WR-30s are filed for W-2 employees only. So if you're a sole prop, we don't expect that you'll have a WR-30, but you'll get, a sole prop amount for one employee, which is yourself. We don't count 1099s. So just make sure that if you have WR-30s, you've chosen the one with the most full-time equivalents over the past 8 months, and make sure you know your NAICS code, your North American Industry Classification Code. It's probably on your taxes or in your formation documents or somewhere. We need to categorize people by that number, and we will be checking it against the documentation that you provided. And in terms of revenue, we're looking to see, the loss of revenue because of the pandemic. So make sure that you have tax returns. If possible, tax returns are usually the best way for us to quickly just see the difference in revenue year over year. If you're a newer business and maybe you don't have, taxes over a year's time, then we'll look at like projections or bank statements or things like that. At that point, we'll be talking already and trying to figure out how we can document income and revenue loss. Next slide. So business registration requirement. You must be registered to do business in the state of New Jersey. There's no way around this. If we can't find you at the Division of Taxation and we can't get a business registration certificate, we'll give you 4 weeks from the initial notification that you don't have that, or taxation has no record of you being there. And then at that point, you'll have those 4 weeks to try to clear up whatever issues you've had with taxation, or provide that business registration certificate, because it could be something simple as, your EIN was 1 digit off, or the name that you put in was not the name that taxation has, or whatever. It can be very small issues, but they have, we'll give you 4 weeks to cure it. And so yeah, you'll need a valid business registration certificate. Okay, so opportunity zones. These programs have been created, so recently that we have built in the opportunity zone tracks and made sure that we did set aside so that we could be as equitable as possible when distributing this money across the state. So we, we try to accommodate every, opportunity zone business as much as we can with that set aside. We also have made accommodations for language. So our application is available in English and Spanish. And if you need the application in 10 other additional languages, you just let us know, and then we'll make sure that we get it to you in the languages, as long as it's one of these 10 that we have. We'll do our very best. So it's just a picture of our application translated. And that's it. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Maggie. So why don't we, as we have the questions and answers coming up through our Q&A module. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A module. But I'm gonna bring our slides back to, the primary deadline so that people can have that up front. So just as a reminder to everyone that right now it's pre-registration, correct, Maggie?
Correct.
And so they have till next week. I've had received some questions about people having some difficulty with the pre-registration. Should they create a new one, or is there a number to call?
Yeah, you can always reach out to our customer care regarding your specific issue, because sometimes it's just a small issue that we can resolve quickly.
Great. And so for anyone else, if you're not pre-registered, you can apply for this phase. How about if you were registered for previous phases? Would you be able to still apply?
Yes. Yes, and it doesn't matter even if you just received phase 3. We're just taking it into account whatever you received. Just
Maggie,
like,
sorry, if I could just clarify, people even if they've applied in previous phases, they must do a separate pre-registration for phase 4.
Yes, thank you for the clarification, Virginia, because I know others would say, you know, I registered the last time, can't I use the same information? But so yes, everyone needs to register, pre-register for this phase. Virginia, are there any questions that came up that maybe we want to bring forward and share the answer?
One thing that's come up a number of times is people are concerned that if they haven't submitted their 2020 tax return yet, they may not be eligible, and that's not the case. I think that's an important thing to clarify. You can still apply even because the 2020 tax deadline was extended, so a lot of people haven't filed, and that's not a problem. I think they should still pre-register, still go through the application process, and you know that'll all get sorted out as they work through the questionnaire.
Thank you. I know a couple of questions came in through the chat room as well. And I think the first one was regarding as a micro business. So what are the grant maximums that people can apply?
so the grant maximum is $20,000 across all of the buckets.
And as we see here, it's also based on number of FTEs.
Exactly.
Maggie, we have a few additional questions. One is whether single LLCs count as micro businesses.
Yes.
And then there's a question about how receiving grants on PPP in the past would affect eligibility.
It's just part of the calculation. So when we look at, you know, let's say all of the other grants you might have received, you know, if you did phase 1 and phase 2, let's say of the NJEDA grant, and then say you got a PPP, we're putting that in our calculation, but we're looking at the gap over time, at your losses over the life of the pandemic. So every case is different, but we're basically looking at the gap there for you and how we can help fill that gap.
And then Maggie there's a question about using for WR30s, is it okay to use Q1 of 2021 or does it have to be Q4 of 2020?
I think we're going up to Q4 2020.
And you mentioned the past 8 quarters. So so it'd be 2019 and 2020 are the two.
Correct. And they're picking the highest of the WR30s. You don't have to send all 8 WR30s, just the highest.
I know there was a question about, is this available for nonprofits?
Yes.
And so they would be applying under with the other small businesses category?
Yes. I believe so, Virginia. I'm correct about that, right?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So for the not-for-profits, they apply with all the other businesses.
Exactly.
That bucket. Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the number of employees, they'd apply either as a micro or as in the category of other small business. That applies to nonprofits as well. I think that may be it for there's a question about is there a payroll threshold we must have met to be qualified to receive the max grant? I think the answer to that, Maggie, would be no, right? It's just based solely on number of WR30s.
Yes, correct.
And just to be clear, so pre-registration's open till the 29th. And then what do they get a email? What's the email response do they get? Is it a and when it comes to actually submitting the application though, they should enter, you know, at 9 a.m. on the day they're supposed to.
Correct.
So it's first come, first serve in the application.
Exactly.
So at this time, is the application visible and as you mentioned earlier, available in multiple languages for people to prepare?
Yes, on the COVID-19 portal website that I had mentioned before, they can look at that sample application.
Great. And I'm just going to read off something from the chat here. Someone had asked for the phone number. What was that phone number for, Virginia?
That's our customer care number. It's 844-965-1125.
And on that line, they could also ask for a speaker in their own language.
Correct. Correct.
Great.
And there's also an email address, languagehelp@njeda.com, if they want to be sent a sample application in their native language.
And one clarification on the opportunity zones. So maybe just some clarity for people. You know, you say there's 33% set aside for businesses in opportunity zones. So does that get spent first? You know, how is that going to be dedicated if there are businesses that are not in an opportunity zone track?
So it's just the rest of the money. So we've set aside that 33%, and as businesses come in, their address and census tract is run, and we determine whether they've been in an opportunity zone or not.
And I know one other eligibility question would be, so about you didn't receive phase 3, but maybe you got phase 2 or phase 1, you know, last year. How does that impact their eligibility?
It's calculated in, but we realize, I think that that's, you know, further away. So every case is different, you know, and we look at them individually, like it just depends on the revenue and what other things that they've gotten from the federal government, and also local government too has gotten CARES money, and some of the counties have given out money. So we're just trying to determine that revenue gap.
Great.
So it's in the calculation.
For people that are asking, yes, we will have a recording of this webinar available on the Invest Newark website in our webinar gallery. So we'll share that afterwards. So everyone will be able to see these slides, and we'll also send a newsletter to our all our contacts, so that where you'll actually get the recording and the slides. If you're not listed on our receiving our newsletters, please put your email address in, send it in to info@investnewark.org. Hilda, if you could kindly put that in the chat. All right, is there, I'm thinking of any other questions? I know most of them that we received earlier in advance of this, I've been able to ask. Don't know if there's anything that's come up in the other information sessions. The NJEDA has been doing several information sessions to help people across the state.
I can't think of anything that hasn't already been addressed. I would just, you know, say, just get your paperwork together ahead of time. It's, you know, it'll go so much faster for the applicant if everything is already uploaded, because then it doesn't take a human to go through and review the file and ask for additional clarification and information. So if you can just have everything ready to upload, that's the ideal situation.
Great. And again, everyone has some time to submit. You know, the pre-registration closes next week, and then you've got some time before you can actually to get your application together. So just brought up to the slide again, the timeline for everyone's benefit. All right, well, thank you so much, Maggie and Virginia, for helping to bring this information to at least to all the businesses here on the call and everyone, all the businesses here in Newark, that Invest Newark will be able to help supply some assistance in gathering their information for the application. But thank you, and we appreciate everything that NJEDA has been able to help businesses in the state of New Jersey, and especially in Newark.
You're welcome, Vanessa. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you, everyone.